Are you considering a career in structural engineering? Maybe PhD is something that you think about? Are you a STEAM person? Someone who has an integration of art and STEM in their future? Well, if that's the case, then you're gonna love this interview with Nehemiah Mabry. Hey 1% Nation, I'm Jake Voorhees and you are watching the 1% Engineer Show, where we empower young engineers to rise to the top 1% of their career. If this is your first time to the channel, guys, make sure you subscribe because I release videos 3 or 4 times a week for engineering student success. And if you don't have the 1% Engineer Kit yet, comment below and I'll send you a copy. It's a bunch of ebooks and resume templates so that you can win. So let's not waste any more time, guys, and jump right into this interview with Nehemiah Mabry. Enjoy! Hey 1% Nation, today on the show we have Nehemiah Mabry. I am so excited to have him on the show. It's one of the biggest inspirations behind 1% Nation and the 1% Engineer Society. Nehemiah has an undergraduate degree in math, civil engineering, master's in engineering, civil engineering, and has his PhD in structural engineering as well from NC State. I have my red on for you, by the way. This is no coincidence, so hats off to that. Nehemiah, yeah, definitely. Nehemiah has been building a community of his own, like I said, a big inspiration for me, called STEM Media for 5 or 6 years, where he bridges the gap between science, tech, engineering, and math with creativity. So he fuses the two and empowers young professionals, young STEMers, young engineers to not only be left brain, but a little bit right brain as well. He has done research at NASA, 6 publications, 4 engineering awards, including a national award. I think maybe some of them are national awards. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But I believe Nehemiah can teach us all, myself very, very heavily included, a lot of things about how to be successful in a career in engineering and STEM outlets and beyond. So Nehemiah, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here, and I hope I can live up to that intro because you set the bar kind of high. So hopefully I can provide some value to you in the 1% Nation. But thanks for having me.
100%. Thank you so much for being here. So why don't you fill in some gaps in that intro if you so choose, and fill us in on a couple things outside of engineering that you're involved with.
Yeah, man. Well, you hit a lot of my technical kind of career background. One thing that's exciting about me is that I've been married for 2 years, and my wife and I just gave birth to a baby girl. So she's about 3 months old now, and when you talk about things that I'm doing, that's by far the most important thing that's going on in my life right now. Mm-hmm. So that's the part I would say that was left out. But other than that, I'm pretty much what you stated, a structural engineer. I work as a bridge design engineer right now, as well as run STEM media on the side. So yeah, man, happy to be here, and that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Family first, right? I remember you posting the photos about your daughter, and could just see like the happiness coming out of you. So
yeah, man, she's changed my world, man.
I know, right? It is life changing. A couple of my friends are having kids, and this is what they say. It's like, you didn't think you were important until you are responsible for another human, right?
100%, man. And that's the epitome of sacrifice and giving.
Yeah.
I'm glad to experience it.
100%. Okay, Nehemiah. So I think because you have such an illustrious civil engineering career, I want to take a step and go all the way back and reset to maybe when you were in high school or even before that. But how did you even know that you wanted to become a civil engineer? Because you had quite a commitment getting into a PhD, and now you're designing bridges. So I want to go and tell us that story about where this all started.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It actually started in terms of knowing what engineering was. It was my dad. My dad recognized in me some of the gifts and affinities that I had, such as playing with Legos. A lot of people can relate to that. I enjoyed drawing and designing things. I was pretty good at math. Like I didn't love math. There are a lot of people in my class that's like, oh man, I can't stand math, can't stand science. And I would look around and say, hey, I don't really have a problem with it. It's cool with me. And so having kind of that unique combination was something that existed since childhood, and that my dad acknowledged when I was in high school. He was like, Nehemiah, what you need to do is take out engineering. And at the time, man, I was used to my dad always trying to get me to do things that I wasn't really interested in. And when he said that, though, I was like, okay, that sounds like a pretty good thing. So I'm going to look into it. And it just so happened it lined up with an opportunity to be a high school research apprentice at NASA. And so that's when I applied and I went into the program, and that was it, man. When I got into that, that was when my eyes were open. I was like, yeah, this is definitely where I need to be. And from there, I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I played a lot with Legos. How old were you when you landed that opportunity with NASA?
Man, I was about 16 or 17. It was unique because it was in the city, Huntsville, Alabama, where I was living at the time. And NASA has an installation there. And they just happened to have this high school program for local high school juniors. And man, being in the right place at the right time, getting accepted was really what launched my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you did that for many years, right? Like a long time.
I did, man. To be honest, I went the first year. It was a little paid internship. It was nice to say, as a high school student, I'm getting paid to work for NASA. But then the next summer, there was really no continuation of it. And so I went out and I volunteered. I said, man, can I come out? Can I continue to work with you? And that volunteering actually led to another paid position as a college student that launched part-time working throughout the entire school year, and then even onto my master's and a little bit of my PhD being paid for by NASA. So, man, when you get your foot in the door, you gotta make the most of it, and don't be afraid to volunteer to actually extend your opportunities.
So killer. This is exactly what I've been talking about, 1% Nation. Sometimes you just have to volunteer, put in that work, and not always expect something on the front end in return, but it's going to pay off big time when you do that. And everyone I talk to who's volunteered and it's created this big snowball effect has the same thing that Nehemiah has had happen to him. So that's awesome.
Yep. Honestly, I think that was really a big turning point for me in volunteering because that's when I kind of convinced myself and a lot of people that were around me that this is what I wanted to do. You know, it's one thing to be doing as long as you're benefiting, you're getting money or things like that. But when you look into it and say, man, I would do this for free, that actually changes the entire scenario. Then really people are happy to pay you because they don't feel as though you're all about the money. You're more about the mission and the purpose. And so, man, I got a lot of opportunities to, have my master's paid for at a number of universities. Really not because I was an exceptional student, to be very honest with you,
right?
But because people were able to see, the determination that I had from that experience.
And those people believed in you, right? You had built relationships with these people.
100%, man.
You're always in the people business, 1% Nation. It's always about who you know, and these opportunities will come when people believe in you and trust you. So continuing on this road of how you arrived today, I want to talk a little bit about NC State. Were you there as a student when Russell Wilson was quarterback?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I actually came in as Russell was leaving.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So the summer that I got there was the summer, and there was like, oh, okay, he tried out baseball for a little while, and then when he came back out of baseball, NC State had kind of moved on, and he decided to move. So that same summer was when the summer that I got there. And I just remember him lighting it up at Wisconsin. And that's when I was like, man, why did he stay?
So I was lucky enough to be at Wisconsin for my grad program while he was there. Okay. That's right. So I have such a strong connection to Russell, and living in Vancouver for the last 4 years, they love the Seahawks over there in BC. And NC State is known for their engineering, right? And I know that's where you did your PhD, and I want to talk a little bit about that because I personally don't know as much about Alabama Huntsville, but I know that NC State is nationally and internationally renowned for engineering. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your experience with NC State, maybe why you chose that school for your PhD, and a little bit about maybe like big school with big awareness versus like a little tiny niche program that you probably could have gone to. So love to hear your views on that.
Good question, man. Good question. So I started out at a pretty small school. It was for Alabama Huntsville. I was at about a 2,000 enrollment school in Huntsville, Alabama called Oakwood University. And what I loved about the school is that I was able to really get confirmed in who I was as an individual. I didn't feel like I was lost among the numbers. I wasn't really the person who everything came easy to. So having a relationship in smaller classes made me less fearful of going up to the professor or going to someone and asking for help. So I really got my foundation there. Alabama Huntsville was like the next step up. And so it was a little bigger. Things were a little tougher. It was a lot more competition. But nevertheless, it was a progression for me. When it came to NC State, though, for me, and that was when I decided to go all the way for a PhD, I wanted to have my PhD from a place that carried that weight in terms of the name. So that's why I selected NC State. And man, I think competitive would definitely be one word that I would describe the difference. When I got to NC State, I tell people all the time, there's sometimes you get homework assignments and you got to do maybe 1 through 5. And then you look at maybe 6 and 7 and you question, does the teacher want us to do this? And you may say to yourself, oh no, they only said 1 through 5. Well, when you go to a competitive school like NC State, even if you're not supposed to do it, you best believe somebody in your class is going to do it.
Yeah.
A couple of people do it. And so just so you won't look like the person that was lazy and stopped short, you better do those extra problems. And so that's how it was at NC State, man. It really, because of the competitiveness, caused me to raise my game, raise my thinking. And, in terms of the prestige, that helped as well, I think, primarily because they had the experts in the areas that I wanted to become an expert in. You have maybe a few professors or a few people that study certain areas at a smaller university. Well, at NC State, someone is going to go deep into one of the areas or at a bigger school. And so really seeing the different publications and people who came from there allowed me to identify that, hey, this is the place for me.
Is that where you identified your passion for bridges and now how you design them? Is that kind of where that spark exploded?
Yeah. I would say that. I think my passion for bridges came by way of the interest in actually a different material known as fiber reinforced polymer composites. And so this is something that was very heavily used in the aerospace industry. NASA uses it a lot for the space shuttle. They're designing with it as it relates to the heavy launch vehicles and things of the next generation. But in civil engineering, I come to find out that this was something that is used to restore and repair bridges. And so having a background in civil engineering, yet having this research experience in aerospace engineering with this material, my mind was like, okay, how can I combine my experience with my background and really find a niche for myself? And so NC State had this phenomenal lab where we were testing things using this material on bridges. And so that's where I kind of found a way to leverage, again, my NASA experience with my educational degrees. And so bridges was the way to go in terms of applying that.
I love that. I think it's really good to know where you're getting excited in the field and what starts to make you tick as a student, as a professional with learning, especially with the research, because I talk to a lot of students and they struggle to find this. And I think another way that they can do it is just like what you've alluded to, just get out there and do stuff, volunteer. And generally you don't know what you like until you figure out what you don't like along the way. And it's really hard if you're just sitting in your room and watching YouTube videos or reading until you actually apply it and you get involved. So this is great. I love that story.
There's only so much you can get from a video.
Right.
And I know a lot of people in your community, 1% Nation, you're watching this, and you're making kind of mental notes about certain things. But really, there's nothing like actually getting your hands dirty and getting involved in something. And that's where you can really see if something is for you or not.
100%. Okay, this is great, Nehemiah. You're crushing it. So I want to talk just as you kind of already laid the infrastructure for this response, I believe. Getting involved with research and figuring out that you really liked the NASA application for what turned into a connection to your bridge research at NC State. But was it that research passion and that hunger for that academic sort of vehicle that made you want to get your PhD? I'd love to hear, why was it that you decided to make that commitment and go for Dr. Nehemiah Mabry and have that massive PhD degree, the pinnacle of all degrees? What made you want to strive for that?
Man, that's a really good question as well. To be honest with you, I didn't go into college planning on being a doctor. I thought I would get a job after my bachelor's degree and just kind of live nice with my nice engineering salary. But that, if you recall, was the height of the Great Recession. Mm-hmm. I finished my bachelor's degree in 2009. And the unemployment rate here in the States hit its peak the summer of 2009. And so I was like, man, let me just stay in school, kind of ride this out a little bit. So that was my decision to get my master's. But when I was in my master's program, it's crazy because you graduate from your undergrad and you feel like, oh, man, I know so much. Then I got into my master's. I'm like, man, I know so little.
Yeah.
I realized I don't really know much. And so I was able to open my eyes to a lot of different other subjects and courses that I took there in my master's program that just really opened my eyes to the fact that, I'm really a rookie in this thing. I'm really a rookie. And so something switched for me in that just like someone wants to be the best basketball player they can be, someone wants to be the best entertainer, the singer, whatever your craft is, usually the people who are in the 1%, pun intended, are people who really are determined to really become the best they can be. And so getting my PhD was my attempt to really just take this thing all the way, to say, hey, I'm going to go down and actually say that there is an area that I can say I'm an expert in. And so that was really my motivation. So once that clicked, even though I could have gotten a job after my master's, at that point I was like, let's just keep going. And then it didn't hurt that NASA was also willing to pay for the first year of my PhD. And so I was like, okay, that's a done deal. Let's make it happen.
Sounds pretty good. One saying that I love, 1% Nation, is that you don't know how little you know until you're actually going on and on. You think you know something, and then what happens is the more that you start to learn, the more that you know, is that you don't realize that you know nothing at all. And that's kind of what we're talking about, is as you become an expert, you realize how much more stuff there is to learn. And getting a PhD, it's kind of an indicator that you're going as niche as possible. The T, right? You have the basis of engineering, and then you pick one field to go as deep as possible, and that's exactly what you decided to do. So I love that.
Yeah. And Jake, just to say, man, even though I have this PhD, I still realize there's a lot I don't know. Yep. So I'm not even going to say that I'm there. But there's one very skinny area that I can say, hey, I can go deeper than most in that area. So that's how it is.
And specifically, what area of expertise would that be today? What is your biggest, if you were at a conference right now and people say, what are you an expert in? What would you respond to? Or what would be your response today?
Oh, okay. So my specific area technically would be monitoring defects in carbon fiber composites, strengthening concrete structures. That's it. I mean, look at dissertations, they're long titles because there are a lot of qualifiers in there.
Yeah.
So when it comes to repairing a bridge using carbon fiber, and repair bridge happens to have defects in it, you want to monitor those defects. That is what I would say is my 1 mile deep area, 1 inch wide, 1 mile deep area.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I don't know anything about that. So I've talked about this before, but that's what's funny about civil engineering is that even though we share some of the same expertise, is that you can really go into different directions. I went transportation. I wasn't too into bridges. And so, I might as well be a biology major or something totally different when you're talking to me about this stuff, which is really cool for me. So I love that. I love learning this stuff from you. So, Nehemiah, I'm super pleased that you can tell 1% Nation about your academic history. I love all that. Let's talk a little bit about STEM media and your community that you've been building. And one thing that inspires me so much, building 1% Engineer Society, 1% Nation, is your project. So I would love to hear, you can call from your expertise and your experience here being a leader in that is, what is one thing or one or two things that you think outside of getting good degrees and going to good schools and volunteering and all that? What are some other things that students can do, young engineers can do to be successful in their career?
I would say one of the things that I say frequently is that you have to maintain your creative habits, your creative hobbies. Just like yourself, you're an engineer, you created the show. I, in addition to doing media and things like that nature, I'm a musician. I play the bass guitar. When I was in undergrad, I did improv. I was in an improv drama troupe. I sang in groups and choirs. I think that these opportunities do a number of things for you. One, I feel as though they strengthen your mental agility, right? Instead of just thinking in one mode, you're able to come over here and think in a totally different mode. And really, you're stretching your mind to be able to transition without having so much impedance when you're thinking, right? Another thing that it does is that it opens you up to meeting people that you would never have met if you just stayed in your little area. Jake, the job that I have right now actually came as a result of someone saw me playing the bass guitar somewhere, and they found out that I was an engineering student at NC State. So they say, hey, I heard you're an engineering student. I got a friend that has a bridge design firm. And so he connected me and kind of found out this is the same company that offered me a job when I graduated. Wow. So you're meeting people, you're strengthening your mental agility, and then it just helps you be a more well-balanced person. You're not too stressed. You're able to have this creative outlet that kind of allows you to release in another area where things over here don't matter as much over here, and things over here really don't matter as much over here, at least in the immediate, right? And that allows you to kind of breathe easy. And so that's one of the things I would say, maintain all of your creative interests.
I love that. I love how you told that story about putting the content out with the guitar and getting that job opportunity. You got to put
Yes.
content out there, guys. I mean, so many people have these talents, have these skills, and they have these passions, but they don't start that blog. They don't put their videos on the internet. They don't do the podcast. They don't put their photos on Instagram. So if you just put stuff out there into the world, it gives you the opportunity to be found. And I love that example, even as they seem so disconnected, right? Bass guitar and structural engineering, but it's like you never know. Yeah.
Right. They just they just heard that I was an engineer. That was it. They saw me playing guitar. Yep.
That's so great. We got one more question here, Nehemiah, and then we're going to get into the 1% lightning round. And you really have danced around this twice already with volunteering for NASA and then an opportunity for grad funding. And you gave another example with putting out your creative content and being found and being connected to a job. But this is really the fifth question is, I encourage 1% Nation to get involved with everything, whatever they can, and then also be able to sleep and spend time with their family. But doing all this extra stuff, do you have any other examples as to how doing the extracurriculars, not just your homework and the degrees and the standard engineering obligations, do you have any other examples of how these things have created opportunities, or maybe a person that you met? I guess you really have already done two, but a person like you, I'm sure, has more. But you kind of already answered the question, really. So
yeah. Well, no, I mean, hey, I actually do have another one. It's related to STEM media, actually, and that's how STEM media was started. So back in 2012, I was already kind of doing a lot of creative extracurricular activities, STEM outreach and things like that, and making videos. And so there was an opportunity through Intel to produce a video about staying with engineering. And so I saw it, the sign on campus, went to the event, and then they said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Intel, MTV, Facebook, they're going to host this competition about engineering. And I'm like, hey, this is right up my alley. You know, I'm an engineer, I'm really into this stuff, and I love creatively making, content and things of that nature. And so I entered into that contest. Long story short, I was fortunate to win that national grand prize. But here's where the opportunity came in. The dean of engineering at NC State wanted to meet me just to congratulate me and say, hey, man, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Keep up the good work. But little did he know that I actually was going to come in there like I was on Shark Tank. Like I wasn't even going to just shake his hand and take a picture. I was like, look, I'm gonna make a proposal. I'm going to get a pitch about how I'm about to launch this media company. I'm about to start doing this on a regular basis. And so I'm sitting in the meeting and he's like, yeah, good job, da, da, da. And I hear it going to a close, Jake. And so now in my mind, I'm like, all right, time to unleash the pitch. And I said, hey, before I go, I have one more thing. I pull out a bullet point, a whole sheet, like summary about basically what was STEM media, right? I didn't call it STEM media yet, but that's what it was. I said, actually, Dean, this is something I'm going to be doing on a regular basis. And so I began to pitch him my ideas about, creating this brand that was technical and creative. And immediately I saw his eyes light up and he just became my mentor and number one supporter ever since. So to this day, Dean Louis Martin Vega is an individual that supports me. He's actually connected me with other individuals. And a lot of STEM media clients and people that I've partnered with has been a result of him seeing that. And so he meets with me on a regular basis. That was me just really taking an opportunity to really make the most of it. And so, man, that's definitely a story I have for you.
I'm super happy that you added that. Find a mentor, guys. It's really important. And secondly, use opportunities where you already have trust, you already have a positive impression on someone, and then finally you can have that ask. And that's what you did. You had NC State stand out because of that national award that you won, and you used that opportunity, slipped it at the very end of the meeting, just like we said, and it has resulted in positive things for you. You asked for a little bit of help. People are too afraid to ask or bring it up to a superior like dean of engineering. That can be intimidating to a lot of students. So I'm super happy that you did that. And look at that big smile that you have when you tell that story. He's still your mentor for you today. So
definitely a very, very crucial period in the beginning of STEM media, without a doubt.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, Nehemiah, you are killing it again. I know I said that already, but this is awesome so far. You are just comfortable on camera and love everything about your story. I think 1% Nation can learn from you so much. So we're about to start a 1% lightning round. Nehemiah, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
Great. What is the number one personal habit that contributes to your success?
The number one personal habit, to be very honest with you, it is taking a day of rest. I actually, every Saturday, keep the Sabbath, man. And so I work 6 days a week. I'm a 24/6 type of guy. So I believe in grinding those 6, right? Going hard, but you got to make sure you have rest. You got to make sure you take a day to kind of rejuvenate yourself. So I've been doing that pretty much my whole life, even when I was doing the tough parts of my PhD. So taking that Sabbath day of rest has been my number one habit.
So you really are honored here today, 1% Nation, as we record this on a Sunday on generally Nehemiah's break day. He's coming at you when this is his rest. So I do it on Saturday.
Oh, okay. I do it on Saturday.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
So I'm good.
Great. Okay, perfect. What is the biggest mistake you've ever made as a young engineer, and how can we learn something from that lesson, from that story?
Oh man, as a young engineer, I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, man, but there was a time where I was responsible for some work, turned in some work, and it came from me, but there was a portion of the work that didn't necessarily come from me. It was like I was dependent upon someone else. And even though it was my task, I didn't really verify, the integrity of that portion of the work.
Yep.
And so what happened was I turned it in and come to find out that part was actually inaccurate. And so when kind of all that hit the fan, I was not able to kind of stand behind it the way I needed to do. Yeah. And it kind of came because obviously the person who put that part in is going to say, oh, no, that's my fault. Well, maybe they will, but in my case, they didn't. And so that kind of made me, it made me look bad, but it was a big lesson to learn that even though, if you're going to put your name on something, you want to do your due diligence and verify it. So that's a mistake I made.
That's good advice. Always got to check that work before you turn it in, 1% Nation. Okay, Nehemiah, what is the number one book you can recommend to 1% Nation and why?
Oh man, that's a hard question. Number one book. I've read a lot of the staples, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, a lot of those things, Outliers, all that. But in undergrad, I did read this book called Purpose Driven Life. And that book really helped me really get my mind around the fact that we all have a unique shape. We all have a unique combination of gifts and talents and things of that nature and background. And that really got me focused on trying to fill my spot in the world. And so Purpose Driven Life, would be one that I would recommend people check out.
I actually don't know that one. The other ones I did, they're all on this bookshelf, by the way.
Yeah, I see.
So 2 more here, Nehemiah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received was to, make sure you know yourself. Basically, become self-aware. That's something, a lot of people we follow preach, and it's really important, tying back to the book that I mentioned, really making sure you're not trying to be someone else or imitate someone else. Yes, there are things we can learn from people, and we encourage that, but you are not supposed to be that other person. So make sure you find who you are and be able to self-assess.
Self-awareness is big, guys. You need to know who you are. You need to know where your weaknesses are, your strengths are, and just be yourself and grow. Last one here. What's the biggest thing that you are pumped up for right now? It can be anything. It can be a technology. It can be a social platform, whatever you want. Something that you're working on, Brim. I don't know, but...
Man, I'm going to go back mushy here, man, and talk about my family, my daughter, man. It's crazy. Never have I had the opportunity of literally helping to mold someone from scratch almost. You come into the world really by the time you're conscious of yourself and what's going on, a lot of things have already been downloaded into you. So you didn't really have a hand in shaping yourself from scratch, so to speak. But when it comes to my daughter and my wife and I raising her, I'm pumped because as I try to do my best as an engineer, as I try to also work as an educator and as an entrepreneur, I'm actually creating an environment that is going to be used to shape my baby girl. And so I'm really pumped about being able to place her at a place where when she becomes aware of herself, the things that have been downloaded to her gives her everything she needs so she can reach even higher than I am. So that's what I'm really pumped about.
I love that. Role model. Always a role model. Engineering, STEM media, father. Oh, awesome stuff.
Oh, man, I'm trying my best, man. You are too, bro. Don't miss that fact. I know you're
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you, thank you. Well, Nehemiah, we appreciate you being on the show so much today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have any parting words of wisdom for 1% Nation, feel free to give them now. Let them know how they can follow your journey, and if you want them to go visit STEM Media or anything, you can plug that, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah. My parting words of wisdom would just be like, hey, the world is waiting on your dreams. Like, I know that it seems as if sometimes things are hard, you want to quit, or this doesn't really make sense. But everything now that seems normal, that is the normal, was originally in someone's head. And now that we live with it, we can't imagine life without it. We can't imagine life without, a cell phone. We can't imagine without the computers, without things that we now live with. But if those people quit, then we wouldn't have had that in our world. And so what I'm saying to you is that there is a future individual, there are future people that are waiting for you to create things that are inside of you. And so don't get hung up by the failures or the mistakes that take place. Just make sure you continue to pursue it, because one day you're going to create that thing. We're going to look around and we're not going to be able to imagine life without it. So that will be my parting word of wisdom. I would definitely say connect with STEM Media. You can come to stemmedia.org, or you can connect on social media at _STEMEDIA. And if you want to reach out to me, feel free to. My email is on the website. It's on Instagram, things like that. And I would love to hear about you and maybe even find a way that I can support you in your journey.
So great. Nehemiah, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, 1% Nation. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Nehemiah Mabry. I hope it helped you. I hope you learned something and that you had some valuable takeaways today. And if you did enjoy this video, consider subscribing, because I release videos 3 or 4 times a week for engineering students' success. Thanks for watching the 1% Engineer Show, guys, and stay hungry on your quest to become a 1% engineer. Cheers!